Derek Voren smoothed down his iridescent ceremonial robes and sneered at the gaudy Earth architecture of Centauri Prime's most prestigious spaceport. The humans, with their desperate attempts to imitate the grand designs of the Galactic Alliance, had managed to create something that looked like a child's drawing of an elegant space station. At least they had gotten one thing right: the bar. The Grand Nebula Lounge stretched across the entire top level of the spaceport, its transparent dome offering a spectacular view of the swirling purple gases of the nearby nebula. Praxtor had to admit, begrudgingly, that the sight was breathtaking, but he would rather drink toxic fuel than compliment anything made by humans. "Welcome to the Grand Nebula, Your Excellency." A doorman bowed, his antennae twitching nervously as he recognized the royal insignia of the Voren dynasty. Praxtor ignored him, as any self-respecting noble should. His four eyes scanned the establishment, taking in the floating crystal chandeliers, the anti-gravity booths where various species lounged in zero-G comfort, and the long bar counter made from what appeared to be genuine Martian ruby glass. The humans had at least learned how to spend money, even if they hadn't learned their proper place in the galaxy. "Look at them," he muttered to his attendant, Joruk. "Barely a century since they stumbled into space, and they think they can play with the grown-ups." Joruk bobbed his head in agreement, mandibles clicking. "Quite right, Your Excellency. Quite right." Praxtor selected a booth near the bar, one that would give him a good view of the room while ensuring everyone could see him. The servo droids immediately recognized his status and cleared the area, shooing away a group of minor diplomats who had been eyeing the prime spot. "Service," he called out, not bothering to use any of the sophisticated calling systems built into the table. "Primitives should be summoned as primitives." A human female approached, and Praxtor felt his upper lip curl in amusement. She wore the standard uniform of the establishment, a black vest over a white shirt, with pants that shimmered like the nebula outside. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat arrangement, and her bearing was surprisingly proper for a human. "Good evening, Your Excellency," she said, her voice carrying none of the nervousness he usually enjoyed hearing from service staff. "I'm Selene Drake, and I will be taking care of you tonight. Would you like to start with our special reserve of Centaurian whiskey? We just received a batch aged in zero-G for 50 years. Praxtor leaned back, all four eyes focusing on her with predatory interest. "A human presuming to recommend drinks to me. How quaint. Tell me, little primitive, do you even understand the concept of aged spirits? Or do you still think fermented grain is the height of sophistication?" Marina's smile didn't waver. If anything, it seemed to grow more genuine, which irritated Praxtor immensely. "Actually, Your Excellency, I find the biochemistry of cross-species intoxicants fascinating. For instance, did you know that the Voren royal family has a unique enzyme structure that allows you to process alcohols that would be lethal to most other species? It's why I suggested the Centaurian whiskey, one of the few drinks strong enough to give you a proper buzz." The casual mention of his family's biological peculiarities made Praxtor sit up straighter. How did a human bartender know such details? But before he could demand an explanation, she had already placed a crystal decanter on his table, the liquid inside shifting colors like an aurora. "I will give you a moment to decide," Marina said, turning away with practiced grace. "Just remember, some of us primitives can surprise you." Praxtor watched her walk away, his four eyes narrowed in contemplation. There was something about this human that didn't fit the pattern, something that made his scales itch with uncertainty. But no matter, she was just another servant in a long line of servants, and he had come here to demonstrate his superiority, not to solve puzzles about uppity bartenders. He poured himself a drink, determined to show the Selene Drake exactly what it meant to serve a Voren noble. The night was young, and he had so many lessons to teach. If only he had noticed how the other patrons, especially the military officers in the corner, watched Marina with a mixture of amusement and respect. But then again, Derek Voren had never been very good at noticing things that didn't fit his predetermined view of the universe. 3 drinks in, Praxtor decided it was time to really test this peculiar human bartender. The Centurion whiskey had indeed given him a pleasant buzz, which only irritated him more. He didn't like being proven right by primitives. "Tell me, Selene Drake," he called out, making sure his voice carried across the bar. "Have you ever seen a Regelian sunshot?" Marina approached his table, that same infuriating smile on her face. "The drinking challenge where you have to catch the glass before the liquid evaporates. Not many bartenders are willing to risk their glassware for that particular stunt. Then you will refuse?" Praxter's secondary eyes gleamed with triumph. "Not at all," Marina replied, pulling out a specialized container from beneath the bar. "I just wanted to make sure we use proper thermally treated glasses. The standard ones tend to shatter during the temperature change." A small crowd had gathered, drawn by the prospect of entertainment. Praxtor noticed several high-ranking military officers among them, their medals glinting in the nebula's light. "Perfect, more witnesses to his superiority." "Your Excellency," Jorok whispered nervously, "the last time someone attempted a sunshot in a civilian establishment." "Silence," Praxtor snapped. He turned to Marina. "You know the stakes. If you fail to catch the drink before it evaporates, you pay for my entire evening. If you succeed, I tip you, let's say 10,000 credits. How about something more interesting?" Marina pulled out 3 glasses, her movements precise and practiced. "If I catch it, you apologize to every service worker you have insulted tonight." "I have counted 6 so far," the crowd murmured. No one demanded apologies from the Ralvoran dynasty. "And if you fail," Praxtor leaned forward, intrigued despite himself, "then I will serve you on my knees for the rest of the night, addressing you with all 17 honorifics of the Ralvoran royal court." Marina's hands moved swiftly, preparing the volatile mixture. In ancient High Ralvarinian, of course, Praxtor's eyes blinked in rapid succession. Even his own servants didn't know all 17 honorifics, let alone the proper ancient pronunciation. "You're bluffing. Try me." Marina held up the first glass, now filled with a swirling, plasma-like liquid. "Ready when you are, most radiant sovereign of the 7 purple moons." Her pronunciation was perfect. A hush fell over the crowd. Praxtor felt sweat forming under his ceremonial robes. This was not how this game was supposed to go, but he couldn't back down now. "Begin," he growled. Marina's movements became a blur. She tossed the first glass high into the air, the liquid inside already starting to glow. The heat signature triggered the bar's safety protocols, making warning lights flash. She caught the glass with her left hand while simultaneously throwing the second one higher. The crowd gasped. Even the military officers had stopped pretending not to watch. By the time the third glass went up, Marina was moving with inhuman precision. Each catch came a fraction of a second before the liquid would have evaporated, the heat so intense that Praxtor could feel it from his seat. When she sat down the last glass, all 3 drinks perfectly preserved, the bar erupted in applause. One of the military officers in the corner raised his glass in a subtle salute. "Impossible," Praxtor sputtered. "No human has the reflexes for a triple sunshot. You must have cheated." "Actually," Marina said, sliding the drinks toward him, "it's just basic physics combined with tactical prediction algorithms, something any decent pilot would know. Now, about those apologies. I never agreed to 3 catches. No, but you didn't specify one either. Ambiguous terms in a verbal contract default to the challenged party's interpretation according to Galactic Common Law, Section 47, Paragraph 12. Marina's smile took on a predatory edge. "I can cite the relevant subsections if you'd like." Praxtor looked around desperately. The crowd was watching, waiting. His reputation would suffer either way, but an unpaid bet would be far worse than a few forced apologies. "Fine," he spat, standing up. "Where's the first one?" As Praxtor began his humiliating round of apologies, Marina returned to polishing glasses. But now more patrons were watching her than the noble's awkward attempts at humility. Something about the way she moved, the precision of her actions, spoke of training far beyond that of a typical bartender. "Fascinating technique with the sunshots," a scaled diplomat commented quietly. Reminded me of high-speed combat maneuvers. Just good customer service, Marina replied, but her eyes tracked Praxtor's progress around the bar with the focus of a predator studying prey. Though I do find that certain skills transfer well to civilian life. Praxtor was only halfway through his apologies when he realized he'd lost control of more than just a drinking game. But his pride wouldn't let him see just how deep that loss went. Not yet. Wounded pride demanded satisfaction. After completing his round of humiliating apologies, Praxtor returned to his booth determined to reassert his dominance. The Centaurian whiskey had given way to the sunshots, and his tongue had loosened considerably. "You know," he announced loudly, "I was there during the Battle of Proxima's Gate, led the Third Fleet myself." Now that was a proper display of military might. Not like these human patrol boats, pretending to be warships. Marina glanced up from the drink she was mixing. Proxima's Gate, that was quite the engagement, especially when the minefield activated. "Hey, you humans, and your historical records," Praxtor sneered. "Reading about battle and experiencing it are completely different things. The minefield was nothing compared to our superior tactics." Superior tactics? Marina raised an eyebrow, adding a precise drop of luminescent liquid to the cocktail. "Like sending the light cruisers ahead without proper scanner support. That cost you the entire 7th Division, as I recall." The tentacled merchant to seats over suddenly developed an intense interest in his drink. A Rigelian officer at the bar straightened, antenna twitching. "What would you know about ... double quotes, Praxtor stopped, his secondary eyes narrowing. "Those deployment details were classified, were they?" "My mistake." Marina's smile remained pleasant as she slid a completed drink to another customer. "Though I always wondered why you didn't use the magnetic interference from the nebula to mask your approach. Would have saved a lot of lives, because the nebula's radiation would have ... double quotes, Praxtor's voice trailed off. "Would have actually provided perfect cover for our ships." All four of his eyes blinked rapidly. "How did you ... double quotes just thinking out loud," Marina replied. More sunshots, but now Praxtor was on a roll, his voice growing louder with each boast. "Well, what about the siege of Tau Ceti? 3 months of continuous bombardment. Now that was a display of power. The resistance didn't stand a chance once we positioned our dreadnoughts in the upper atmosphere." "Interesting choice," Marina commented, methodically cleaning a glass. "Putting your capital ships in a gravity well. Risky, risk leads to glory," Praxtor declared, "something you humans have yet to learn. We lost to dreadnoughts, but the victory was worth it." 3 dreadnoughts, Marina corrected absently. "The Nova Dawn, Starpiercer, and Eternal Dominion. Plus 6 support cruisers and a medical frigate." She paused, then added, "Or so I heard." The bar had grown quieter. Even the ambient music seemed to have dimmed. "The Eternal Dominion's loss was never made public," Praxtor said slowly. "That information is sealed in the highest level of military archives, is it?" "How embarrassing for me." Marina began arranging bottles with military precision. Though not as embarrassing as losing a dreadnought to a squadron of fighters using an obsolete planetary defense network. A glass shattered somewhere in the back of the bar. The military officers in the corner were no longer pretending not to listen. "That's impossible," Praxtor sputtered. "No one outside the Admiralty knows about." More drinks. Marina interrupted smoothly. "Or would you prefer to tell us about the Orion offensive? Though perhaps we should skip the part about the surprise attack that wasn't actually a surprise." Praxtor's scales had taken on a distinctly pale hue. "Who are you? Just a bartender who enjoys military history." Marina turned to serve another customer, but paused. "Though if you're interested in real tactics, you might want to ask about the counteroffensive that drove your forces back across the Orion Arm. I heard it was quite educational." "The counteroffensive. But that was ... double quotes, Praxtor's voice dropped to a whisper. "That was led by Admiral Blackwood. Selene Drake, at your service," she said with a slight bow. "Though tonight I'm just serving drinks." The silence in the bar had become deafening. Praxtor looked around wildly, suddenly noticing details he'd missed before. The way the military officers watched her. The perfect practiced efficiency of her movements. The subtle command presence that he'd dismissed as mere confidence. "No," he declared, standing up so quickly his ceremonial robes tangled around his legs. "You're lying." Admiral Blackwood is a legendary strategist, a warrior who turned the tide of 3 major conflicts. Not some drink servant. "You'd be surprised where you find legends these days," said a gruff voice. One of the military officers had approached the bar, especially when they're trying to enjoy their shore leave. Praxter's attendant, Joruk, was frantically trying to get his attention, waving a data pad displaying what appeared to be military records. But Praxtor was too far gone, his pride drowning in alcohol and wounded dignity. "I demand proof," he shouted. No admiral would lower themselves to this, really. Marina's voice had taken on a different tone, one that made several veteran officers instinctively stand at attention. "Because I find that understanding the civilian sectors I'm charged with protecting makes me a better commander. The real question is, why does serving others feel like lowering oneself to you?" The bar had become so quiet you could hear the hum of the artificial gravity generators. Praxtor opened and closed his mouth several times, but no sound came out. His previous boasts about military glory felt hollow in the face of this simple question. I should go," he managed finally. "So soon?" Marina was already preparing another round of drinks for a different table. "But you haven't told everyone about your glorious victory at Sirius Prime, or was it a retreat?" "I always get those two confused." Praxtor backed away from the bar, his ceremonial robes tangled around his legs. He'd come here to demonstrate his superiority, to put primitives in their place. Instead, he felt like a child who'd been bragging about toy soldiers to a veteran of real wars. As he fled toward the exit, Marina's voice followed him. "Do come back tomorrow. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Battle of Volf 359. I have a particularly personal interest in that one." The doors hadn't quite closed behind him when the bar erupted in laughter. But somehow, Praxtor suspected he hadn't heard the last laugh yet, not by a long shot. Praxtor had barely reached the spaceport's main concourse when the first explosion rocked the station. Warning sirens blared as emergency containment fields snapped into place, their blue glow casting eerie shadows across panicked faces. "Report," the command rang out from behind him. Praxtor spun around to see Selene Drake striding out of the bar, her bartender's uniform somehow looking more like a military dress code now. Gone was the pleasant smile, replaced by an expression that made his warrior ancestors seem gentle. "Multiple breaches in Docking Bay 7, a security officer reported, materializing at her side. 3 unauthorized ships just forced their way through the defensive grid. They're using Vanal military codes." All eyes turned to Praxtor. He felt his scales flatten against his skin. "Impossible. Those codes are encrypted with quantum matrices developed by your family's cybersecurity division," Marina finished, her voice cutting through the chaos like a plasma blade. "The same division that reported a breach last month but covered it up to save face." The second explosion hit closer, making the artificial gravity flicker. Praxtor found himself floating for a moment before crashing back to the deck. Around him, civilians screamed and rushed for emergency shelters. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, seal off sections 12 through 15, Marina ordered, now surrounded by a growing circle of officers who seemed to materialize from the crowd. "Captain Patel, get me a direct line to the defense fleet, and somebody get this noble out of the combat zone before his ceremonial robes catch fire." "Now, wait just a moment," Praxtor protested, trying to salvage some dignity. "You can't just station command. This is Admiral Blackwood assuming emergency control." Marina spoke into a communit, completely ignoring him. "Authorization code Nova 7 Delta 359. We have a Class 1 security breach with possible royal family involvement." The station's internal lighting shifted to combat status. Hidden weapon emplacements emerged from decorative walls. The elegant spaceport transformed into a military installation before Praxtor's eyes. "Your Excellency," a junior officer approached him. "Please follow me to the secure area." "No." Praxtor drew himself up to his full height. "I demand to know what's happening with my family's codes." Marina turned to him, and for the first time he saw what his own troops must have seen during the counteroffensive. The cold calculation of a predator who had already mapped out 12 ways to destroy you. "Your demand is noted, denied, and filed under problems for later," she said crisply. "Right now, you're either an asset or a liability. Choose quickly." A third explosion rattled the station. Through the transparent dome above, Praxtor could see warships emerging from jump points, their weapons hot. "Pirates," he whispered, recognizing the modified Vanel cruisers, "using our stolen codes too." "Oh no, oh yes," Marina's smile returned, but now it held no warmth. "Your family's attempt to hide their embarrassment just gave raiders access to every Vanel-aligned port in this sector, and they chose my station for their first heist." "Your station?" The words hit Praxtor like a gravity wave. He wasn't just dealing with a decorated admiral. He was facing the actual commander of this entire military installation, who had been serving him drinks and tolerating his insults all evening. "I can help," he found himself saying. "The codes, they have a backdoor." "All Vanel systems do." "I know," Marina replied, already coordinating response teams through her communit. "Why do you think I let you stay in my bar so long, besides the entertainment value?" More officers poured in from other sections of the station, each snapping to attention as they recognized their commander. Marina issued orders with the precision of someone who had planned for this exact scenario, probably while mixing drinks and enduring his boasts about military glory. "Your Excellency," she said, not looking up from a tactical display, "I'm going to need that backdoor access now, unless you'd prefer to explain to your family how your drinking habits led to a successful pirate raid on a major alliance port." Praxtor felt the last of his arrogance drain away. "The authorization key is linked to my biometrics. I will need direct access to the command center." "Granted. Try anything stupid, and I will have you scrubbing plasma conduits for the next solar cycle." Marina turned to her staff. "Battle stations, everyone. Let's show these raiders why you don't crash a party at my bar." As Praxtor hurried after her toward the command center, he couldn't help but notice how everyone moved out of her way. Not like they had for him, out of obligation or fear, but with the instant respect earned by a true leader. He had come to the station looking to mock what he saw as primitive humans. Now he was about to watch one of them defend his family's honor better than he ever could. The universe, it seemed, had an interesting sense of humor. The command center of Centauri Prime Station hummed with controlled chaos. Tactical displays showed 3 pirate cruisers attempting to dock with the station's cargo bays, while 2 more provided cover fire. Through the main viewport, defense turrets spat emerald beams into space, creating a deadly light show against the nebulous purple backdrop. "Status report," Marina barked, her bartender's vest now adorned with hastily attached Admiral's insignia. 5 enemy vessels confirmed, Captain Patel responded. "They're using modified Vanel battle formations, trying to split our defense grid coverage." "Of course they are," Marina muttered, "because apparently everyone has access to classified Vanel tactics these days." She shot a pointed look at Praxtor, who was fumbling with the command console's biometric scanner. "The backdoor access is more complicated than I remembered," he admitted, all for eyes fixed on the screen. "The security protocols keep changing every few seconds. Just like your drink orders." Marina stepped to the main tactical display. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, configure defense pattern Sierra 9. Captain, prepare to vent atmosphere in cargo bays 3 through 7. "You can't," Praxtor protested. "Those bays contain Vanel Royal shipping containers." "Correction," Marina said, her fingers dancing across the control interface. "Those bays contain Vanel Royal shipping containers that pirates are trying to steal using your family's security codes. Unless you'd prefer to explain that situation to the Galactic Alliance Council." The largest pirate cruiser suddenly broke formation, charging straight for the station's main docking ring. Marina's eyes narrowed. "They're not here for the cargo," she announced. The shipping containers are a diversion. Show me thermal scans of their engine cores. The display shifted, revealing heat signatures that made Praxtor gasp. Those are resonance bombs. They're going to turn my station into a miniature supernova, Marina finished. Using Vanel technology that officially doesn't exist. Your family's been busy. Praxtor felt his scales burning with shame. The resonance bombs were supposed to be dismantled after the war. My father promised the alliance. Save the political drama for later. Marina's voice carried the same authority it had when cutting off drunk customers. Right now, I need that backdoor access, unless you want to be remembered as the noble who let pirates bomb a civilian station using his family's illegal weapons. The reality of the situation finally hit Praxtor like a plasma bolt. This wasn't just about his wounded pride anymore. The station's 10,000 residents, the trade routes, the diplomatic consequences, all hanging in the balance because his family had tried to hide their mistakes. "Watch and learn, Your Excellency," Marina said, her fingers moving across the tactical display with the same precision she'd used to mix drinks. "This is how real commanders handle a crisis." She keyed the station-wide comm. "All hands, battle stations. Initiate defense protocol Blackwood 7. The station's external lights went dark. Defense turrets powered down. To any observer, Centauri Prime Station would appear to be suffering a massive power failure. Admiral Captain Patel warned, "We're losing shields." "No," Marina corrected with a predatory smile. "We're appearing to lose shields." Rodriguez, status of the maintenance drones. "All drones in position, disguised as debris." "Perfect." Marina turned to Praxtor. "Remember how you mocked our primitive technology? Watch this." The pirate ships took the bait, moving closer to the apparently defenseless station. As they entered optimal range, Marina's trap snapped shut. Dozens of maintenance drones, previously hidden among debris, activated at once. Each drone latched onto a pirate ship, bypassing their shields through maintenance access ports, a vulnerability in Vanel ship design that Marina had obviously known about. Now, she commanded, show them some primitive human ingenuity. The drones injected a localized ENT pulse directly into the ship systems. One by one, the pirate vessels went dark, their stolen Vanel technology useless against this simple but effective tactic. "Defense grid back online," Marina ordered. "Target their engine cores. Careful shots only. I want them disabled, not destroyed." The Galactic Alliance will want to examine those resonance bombs. Praxtor watched in stunned silence as his family's supposedly superior technology was systematically dismantled by what he had dismissed as a primitive defense force. The pirates, caught between the station's renewed defenses and the approaching Alliance fleet, had no choice but to surrender. "And that," Marina said, turning to him with the same smile she'd worn while mixing drinks, "is why experienced commanders never underestimate their opponents or their bartenders." The command center erupted in cheers. Officers who had been stoically professional moments before now grinned openly. One of them started humming the tune that had been playing in the bar. "I don't understand," Praxtor said quietly. "Why serve drinks when you command all this?" "Because a good leader serves their people," Marina replied. "Something your family might want to remember. Now, about those illegal resonance bombs. I will personally ensure that all Vanel military technology is accounted for." Praxtor found himself promising, "And the backdoor codes will be properly secured." "Good," Marina's expression softened slightly. "Though I suggest starting with a full audit of your family's weapons programs, unless you'd prefer I submit my official report about today's events to the Alliance Council." Praxtor felt the last of his noble arrogance crumble. He had come to this station believing himself superior, only to be outmaneuvered by someone he had dismissed as a servant. The true humiliation wasn't in being defeated, it was in realizing how wrong his entire worldview had been. "Thank you," he said finally, the words feeling strange on his tongue. "For saving the station and for teaching me several valuable lessons. All part of the service," Marina replied with a wink. "Though next time, I suggest starting with a simple please and thank you." It's amazing how far basic courtesy can get you in this primitive little galaxy of ours. 2 days after the failed pirate raid, Prax Tor Vaynol stood in the restored Grand Nebula Lounge watching repair drones fix the last of the battle damage. The bar's transparent dome once again offered an unobstructed view of the nebula, though now he noticed the subtle shimmer of enhanced shield generators hiding among the decorative patterns. "Your usual, Your Excellency." He turned to find Selene Drake behind the bar, once again wearing her bartender's vest. "No Admiral's insignia in sight. You're still here," he said, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. "I thought that I'd be off commanding ships and leading fleets." Marina smiled as she prepared a Centaurian whiskey. "I am. This is just my Friday night job." "I don't understand." Clearly, she slid the drink toward him. "Though, you're starting to, which is why you came back." Prax Tor settled onto a bar stool, noticing how the other patrons no longer cleared a path for him. Some even nodded politely, treating him as just another customer. "The Vaynol High Command received my report this morning," he said quietly, "about the stolen codes, the resonance bombs, everything. There will be changes." "Good." Marina polished a glass with practiced efficiency. "Though I suspect that's not why you're here." "No." Prax Tor took a deep breath. "I came to apologize, not because of a bet or a challenge, but because I was wrong. About humans, about service, about a great many things. Apology accepted." She began mixing another drink. "Though you might want to share that revelation with your family, especially the part about service." Around them, the bar had returned to its normal rhythm. Officers and civilians mingled freely, their conversations a mix of languages and cultures. Prax Tor noticed how many of them greeted Marina by name, not with forced politeness, but genuine respect. "How do you do it?" he asked finally. "Command their respect while serving their drinks, because there's no contradiction there." Marina topped off an elegant cocktail with a flourish. "Leadership isn't about being above others, it's about understanding them. Every hour I spend here teaches me more about the people I'm sworn to protect than 100 tactical briefings." She slid the cocktail toward a waiting customer, then turned back to Prax Tor. "Besides, you'd be amazed what people tell their bartender. Best intelligence gathering in the galaxy." Prax Tor laughed, the sound surprising him. "Is that why you let me ramble on about classified battles?" "Partly." Her eyes twinkled. "Though watching you try to explain tactics you clearly didn't understand was pretty entertaining." A comfortable silence fell between them. Through the dome, Prax Tor watched Alliance patrol ships glide past, their formation perfect against the nebula's glow. "The Vaynol dynasty has ruled through power and fear for 10 generations, he said finally. "Perhaps it's time we learned about serving instead." Now that, Marina raised her own glass. "Sounds like a noble goal." As Prax Tor finished his drink and prepared to leave, Marina called after him, "Oh, and Your Excellency, next time you visit, remember the first rule of the Grand Nebula, which is, tip your bartender well. She might just save your life someday." Prax Tor Vaynol walked out of the bar with a lighter step, leaving behind his preconceptions about power and dignity. Behind him, Admiral Selene Drake continued serving drinks, commanding her station in the most effective way she knew, one conversation at a time. And somewhere in the purple depths of the nebula, a new story began spreading through the trade routes and military channels. A story about a bartender who was more than she seemed, and a noble who learned that true authority comes not from demanding respect, but from earning it. The last laugh, it turned out, belonged to them both.